just physical, mental, spiritual. Zealous Wellness with Mike Hollis.
Hey, welcome again to another episode of Zealous Wellness with Mike Hollis. I'm your host. I'm having a blast with these. I got to tell you, I've just kind of live with, like experiences. I'm kind of, I don't want to say, self-taught, but there's a lot of things that I've learned throughout my life that I've kind of done on my own. The cool thing is you're going to learn a lot about trial and error and progression, which is going to be really where my focus of tonight's episode will be on the levels of progression. You think about, growing up and learning new things and kind of getting an idea and getting, used to certain stuff. Maybe you've been taught a little bit of a process, but sometimes your stubbornness, men were stubborn. I don't know who here reads the directions on the IKEA. When you go to IKEA and you buy a bed or a bookshelf or something, do you read the directions? I don't. I just look at the pictures and think, I got this, But with the normal everyday life stuff, there are some things you can't really cut the corners with. So you have to be a little bit more cautious and pay a little bit more attention. But I can tell you, I've learned a lot of things in my life, kind of self-taught, just through trial and error. And guess what? We talked about the fear of failure last week. Well, guess what? There's going to be a lot of failure when you're going through these self-testing type of things, and there's a level of progression. When I talk about kicking, we always talk about, we can focus on the right things. We have the answers. We have the key to the vault. And again, this is very prideful because we know, I say we, my kicking coach, Jim Gattano, and myself, we both know, that this is the best kicking method out there. I lived it as a small kid and as a kicker in the NFL, not real big. But my point is that Jim actually came up with this concept. He says, imagine if you were standing on the ground and you're looking up at this building and the clouds were really low and you had these four different ladders that went up and they went up on the side of the building and you couldn't see the top of the building at all. You couldn't see the top of the ladder. So you have to kind of pick and choose which ladder you think is the right weight that's going to take you to the top. And only one ladder takes you to the top. Well, we know what ladder that is. Okay, we know the process. We know the right way to do it. Again, the pride in a lot of kids would say, well, I'm going to just guess. I think it's this one. I'd rather do it this way. Well, guess what? They get up that ladder, they climb, go through the clouds and realize that the ladder just stops right there. Like, oh, crap. So guess what? They have to backtrack. They have to go back down to the very bottom of the ladder. Okay. Well, still, they're like, well, I think I still know. I'm going to choose this method over here. I think this is the right one to do. Well, guess what? They choose that method over there. They don't listen to us. They choose that method, and guess what? It goes maybe a little higher, but it stops. And they don't reach the top of the building, right? So they have to go back down to the bottom. And then now, at this point, you're thinking, well, it's a 50-50 chance, but they clearly, we're pointing, well, not pointing at it. We're telling them we know the right answer. If you ask us and want to know it, we're going to tell you what ladder is going to take you to the top of the building. Well, a lot of kids are, stubborn in a sense where they just, it just doesn't feel comfortable. I have a feeling that this ladder is going to work. Guess what? The third ladder, they go up in the top and they're climbing up the top of the, what they think is going to go through the clouds and to the top of the building. And guess what? That one doesn't make it either. So like, crap, it's one out of, now I know which ladder it is now, but I wish I would have listened to them at the beginning, right? Well, so it really doesn't have much to do about progression, but it has a lot to do with understanding, the right process and just trusting that process. So again, I kind of, talking about my own self-taught sort of concept is the fact that I'm learning on my own. Maybe I was a little stubborn at times. Well, I learned my lesson. I had to backtrack. I had to go back and start all over again. But I did learn a little bit in the process. But again, I wasn't, people weren't telling me how to do things. I was kind of doing them on my own. So with regards to just, getting anything in life that has house maintenance, things around the house, I've basically just kind of learned things on my own. Nowadays you have YouTube and stuff. So there's a lot of ways to figure things out, whether you want to listen to someone who knows that they're professionals, they know the right way, because they've gone through this progression, the levels of progression, whether they've done it the way I mentioned before, or they were actually taught it. So you have a couple options there, but again, it's who you trust. And if you understand, and that's one thing with my kicking academy course, I really make sure that I explain a lot of things, because it'd be hard for a kicker to do things without me explaining how and why it works the way it does. Okay. So we're going to be talking about the levels of progression in really anything in life, honestly. But we're going to have a really quick word from our sponsor, and we'll be right back to talk about levels of progression.
At 3, we want to give you the true health benefits that you're paying for, something you can feel and see a difference quickly. Each product is packed with powerful plant-based nutrients that are combined through a proprietary curation process and then infused with innovative cellular absorption technologies to ensure the nutrients absorb into the cells for maximum wellness. The quality and effectiveness of our life-changing products is evident by their approval to be included in the well-known Prescriber's Digital Reference, or PDR. PDR has been a valuable resource to the medical doctors and providers in the healthcare community for decades. Our products are GMO-free, clinically studied, and third-party tested, all designed to support health and proactive wellness for everyone.
So welcome back. We're talking about levels of progression, and I have a great sort of example, just me personally through life and my football career. I started in middle school, played on a lightweight 8th grade team. That was my only year in middle school. Back in Washington State, we had our middle schools were grades 7th, 8th, and 9th, and 7th and 8th grade. They actually divided the football team into 2 different weight categories. So it was a lightweight team and a heavyweight team. Can you guess which team I was on? Clearly on the lightweight team, right? Well, I felt comfortable because I was playing against kids, were kind of around my size. And so when it came to 9th grade, I was like, well, I don't want to play because I'm going to get killed. And I wasn't really fearful of getting killed. I just wanted to kick, and I was pretty decent as an athlete, and I just, for whatever reason, didn't play. I was like, I just, they would have, it was all one weight, all weights, right? So I kind of had to, make a decision, and I decided I just didn't want to play. So fast forward into, going to high school. So that was a level of progression. I went from middle school to high school. Now I'm in high school, or before I even get to high school, I mentioned this in previous podcasts that I had a stepbrother that was leaving that same high school as I was going into that high school. And he asked me if I was going to be, on the football team, if I wanted to play football and be a kicker. And I said, well, I'll get killed, man. I got to play other positions. I want to do that. There's a reason why I didn't play in 9th grade. And he said, well, no, I mean, you could just be a kicker. And I said, no way, that's impossible. He said, yeah, we have a guy on the team that just kicks. Or had a guy on the team. He was graduating at the same time as well. And so I thought, wow, okay, well, that's okay. Maybe I won't get killed. So I gave it a shot, and clearly that was a great decision for me. And thank God for my brother who actually told me that. I don't even know where I'd be right now. Zealous wellness may not even be a thing. Mike Hollis in the NFL, probably, I don't even know if it would be a thing. So fast forward, obviously played my high school years, and you think of progression of athleticism, size, speed, all that stuff, right? Well, it was a very comforting road for me, just as a spectator. I say spectator because I'm the kicker on the team. My level of progression came with my kicking abilities. Well, yes, it is what it is, but I'm not hitting guys on the other side of the field. I'm not playing against guys and bashing heads. So I wasn't too worried about that sort of level of progression when I'm watching from the sidelines, as I mentioned, as a spectator. Watching these guys play football, and I noticed, and again, when I was talking about the smooth transition on the levels of progression with me specifically with the levels of football that I played, it was kind of a good thing. I mentioned in previous episodes that I was like, I was really upset that these teams didn't want me because I was too small, and so I ended up having to go to junior college. Well, that's just another level of progression if you think about it. So again, to not make this too long and drawn out. High school, or middle school up to high school. Yeah, I got a little bit better as a kicker, and realized I could just kick. So my focus was more on kicking. So that was good. And then I go into 3 years of high school and do pretty well. And then of course I mentioned before about my size, and all these coaches overlooked me, saying that he's just too small. We can't. Even though I kicked the ball pretty good, I had 2 50-yard field goals as a senior in high school in the same season. So And I was better than Travis Hansen. Well, Jason Hansen, you all know Jason Hansen. He played for Detroit Lions for like 20 something years. Came out of high school in Spokane, Washington. I played against him in high school in soccer and football. He was 2 years older than me, but he had a brother that was Travis. His name was Travis, and Travis was my age. And so we were at the same level as far as both seniors. And I was a better kicker, according to the Greater Spokane League, right? So I was chosen as first team. He was the second team, right? Well, he goes on to University of Washington because, he's a bigger guy maybe, and his brother has a name, and so he has a name, right? So they gave him a, full ride scholarship, right? Well, I didn't get any scholarship opportunities. I got maybe a couple walk-on opportunities, but they weren't really that serious. I went to watch. Well, actually, that was after junior college. But you visit these teams and the schools, and you get these unofficial visits because they don't want to waste an official visit on someone that they really don't know if they're going to want to have. So I would just have to go get these really unofficial, like, I'm just going to look at the campus and maybe talk to somebody. And I didn't get the chances really to talk to coaches. I talked to guidance counselors and things like that. But it was kind of discouraging. But when I look back, it was actually a good thing, because it allowed me to kind of progressively, naturally, like a smooth progression. Okay. So I wasn't thrown in the fire, in other words. Now I know there's a lot of guys out there that are pretty talented and they go straight from kind of a so-so, as kickers, a high school that's not that great, but they had a lot of field goal opportunities and they were actually really good. And they go to these D1 schools, big high powerhouse, University of Florida's and Auburn's and, Miami's and all those big schools, University of Washington, when I'm back, growing up in the state of Washington. But, you think about these kids that get thrown in the fire, I kind of feel bad for them because they really didn't have levels of progression. They kind of just were thrown in the fire. And so it's kind of tough at those times. And you got to be pretty mature. And, at that level of football, being the age that we are at that level of football, coming in as freshmen in college, that's a tough thing for a kid to be thrown in a Division I football game straight out of high school. I mean, no red shirt, just go right in. Well, I didn't redshirt either. However, my level of play was junior college, and it wasn't, it was, again, a natural progression of talent, speed, of size, all that stuff, right? So I go to junior college and, again, do pretty well. Well, guess what? Going back to my previous shows, I talk about the whole, once my 2 years of junior college were done, I was right back in the same boat I was when I was a senior in high school looking to go to college. Nobody really wanted me. I didn't really have a lot of exposure, a lot of, recognition as far as, I didn't have a lot of leverage. Guys weren't fighting over me. It was, you can walk on. We got a guy here, but, you can. And I was still, but then finally University of Idaho kind of stepped up. And even at that point, wasn't into like, hey, here's a scholarship, come play for us. It was like, hey, come enroll in classes, take a chance. We have a scholarship available if you can beat this guy out. I took a chance and I did. So you go from that, from middle school, high school, junior college, then Division I AA, and even then it wasn't even Division I football. It was Division I, but it was AA, and now it's FCS, so it's a lower level Division I football, but it's still Division I. So yeah, there was talented guys there for sure. But again, my progression and what I saw as a spectator, seeing the talent and the size. Now, I went straight from a smaller, Division I school, college school, to the NFL, and that was a huge jump. Now, I'm thankful that I chose to be a kicker because I think that would have been a tougher transition for me. But as a kicker, my job doesn't really change. I mean, nothing really does. It's just I got to be a better kicker. The snap and the hold and the whole operation, all that stuff, the blocking, all that stuff is not in my responsibility with regards to the whole entire field goal operation. But me as a kicker, yes, I have to get better, and I have to progress with the levels, if you know where I'm going with this. Okay, so I had a nice transition levels of progression throughout my football career. I didn't make the team my first year out of college. The San Diego Chargers I went to, and they had John Carney as their kicker, and he was, was at 4 years, 4 or 5, 6 maybe years at the time. So he was kind of already a well-known veteran and very good. He happened to go to the Pro Bowl the year that I was challenging him for his job in 1994. I knew I wasn't going to get the job, and it was okay. I was okay with that. It was just such a cool experience, just learning from them and just learning the whole aspect of NFL football. It was just so bizarre. And I think I did mention this maybe in previous episodes, but I'll tell you again, my first experience in an NFL football game, I was actually suited up in pads and uniform. I never ever as a kid watched an NFL game in person. My first experience watching an NFL game in person, I was actually on the team playing. I really didn't play in that game. It was a Hall of Fame game back in 1994. Chargers and Atlanta Falcons, actually. Norm Johnson was the kicker on the other side for the Falcons. Pretty cool experience. Really cool, actually. So getting into this concept of levels of progression, when you think of anything in life, you're going to learn things and you're going to experience things at certain levels. And you know, if you expect, and again, I always like to really relate to this level of expectation. I have always told everybody, probably you guys who've watched these before, I wasn't a really big goal setter. My goals were to do the best I could every single day and get to whatever ability that this body frame could do. Now, I was fortunate enough to be taught a certain kicking mechanisms and form and technique that I clearly to this day believe is the best. But so that was a fortunate part of me. But again, just learning the whole concept of it and kind of just taking baby steps with it. And my whole idea, my whole goal in life really was to get as good as I could possibly be, because I know that my athletic ability, my size, and my strength, and we'll say lack of all three of those, I could only be as good as what I could physically be with the body that I was given by God, right? So I had the only opportunity to just do as good as I can. And here's the best part about this. You think about people who are setting goals and they they don't make their goal. Well, do they think they're a failure? Well, maybe, I don't know, but I just didn't even want that opportunity to feel like I failed. And so that's really another reason why I chose to think about my goals as more of doing as best I can every single day, baby steps, again, levels of progression. I'm progressing, at a certain level and levels every single day, getting better, chipping off the blocks, just getting better and better and better, slowly but surely. I was very patient with this. Okay. That's another issue that a lot of kids have, and anybody in general, everyday life. If you're impatient about trying to learn something, again, if you're stubborn, if you just, I got this, and I don't need your help, usually you find those guys, those kind of people, like having to take steps backwards, just like that building I was just talking about. Same attitude. Those kickers, I got this. This way feels much better for me. I like that ladder. I'm going to choose that one. We're like, it's not the right ladder. Don't do it. Don't let and eventually have to come back down. I've worked really hard. We're on the wrong stuff, only to get to a certain level. That's another thing I kind of forgot to kind of mention. But you think about the levels of the ladders. Well, the levels that, however they were kicking the football would only get them to a certain level of success, success being the ladder that reached the top. Okay. So you kind of thought, well, we're going to tell you, if you want to know which ladder is going to take you to the top of your best ability and whatever you can do, we're going to tell you. But if you don't, then you just pick your own. So that kind of my mindset was to do, I trusted the mechanics, trusted the form, do the best I can under the circumstances I was given on a daily basis. If I could look myself in the mirror at the end of the night and said I did the best I could, I've passed. I've achieved the goal of the day. And then the next day, repeat, rinse, wash, and repeat. Right, same exact thing the next day, and then the next day, and the next day. Of course, so we're taking baby steps on this whole progression of trying to master a certain skill. And that's the other thing too, is don't ever think you're going to be perfect at everything. I say master. Has anybody ever mastered anything in life? Has anybody ever been perfect at every single thing? Like every little a golfer, obviously they failed learning to get to the highest level of golf. Well, even the professional golfers at the highest level of golf, they fail. They have terrible shots. Well, I've had terrible kicks. I've missed kicks that I shouldn't have. Yeah, we all are going to fail. That's my point. You can talk about mastery, you can talk about perfection, you can talk about being perfect in everything in life, but if you expect perfection, if you expect to be a master at a certain craft, when I say master, it's kind of the same thing as being perfect at it. You're gonna be disappointed in yourself, and that's not realistic. That's my point. So if you understand being realistic about your abilities, and then you have maybe a concept or a philosophy or a form or a skill or whatever that's being taught to you or whatever, and even if you're self-taught, you're going to still learn a lot when you're self-taught. You're going to learn how to deal with certain situations, and you remember failures. Oh boy, I definitely remember failures. I remember successes too. Well, that's a good thing. So you're learning from both, So these levels of progression, you really want to make sure that you're not looking too far ahead here, which brings me on to my next point, which you can see the frustration in my face. Okay, I'm rolling my eyes already. When you talk about in my position as a football kicking coach, right? And I've got a guy, Mark Nolan, who I don't know if he's watching right now, but Mark is another kicking coach I'm friends with, and he's probably like the longest running football kicking coach in the world right now. I think he's on 53 years, as long as I've been alive, right? So he's been coaching that long. So Mark is very adamant, and I'm following suit as well, about really making sure that these kids are living in reality. Okay, it's incredibly frustrating when you have a kid that thinks they're so good and they want to just go straight to the highest level. And I'm referring to like high school kids wanting to go to college. They don't want to even sniff any level of college lower than Division I. And I say, well, little Johnny, you became Big Johnny now. So Big Johnny here is graduating high school as a senior, and he still hasn't gotten any offers. Well, Big Johnny now is really upset, and he's blaming, recruiting or whoever's helping him. He's probably blaming, like, oh, it's your fault. It's not mine. I kicked it. Listen, Big Johnny, you have to be humble. Okay, this is a little bit of slice of humble pie here. You have to understand that there is a level of success, and you might have had some kicks that were pretty good here and there, kicks that you were pretty successful in, but overall, in general, that's why a lot of these guys do these. Well, Michael Husted used to do a really good job of these combine series camps. They were combine series. So they were charting events, which I'm not a huge fan of the ones that are going on these days, because I think kickers are kind of misled, and they go to these huge ones with sailors and one-on-one kicking, all these big kicking organizations out there, and they're not ready. They're not prepared enough, and they've maybe been brainwashed by their peers or even coaches, or maybe even the kicking coaches themselves. I apologize if I'm stepping on anybody's toes, but sometimes these kicking coaches can get a little out of hand, and if they're looking for more participation in their showcase camps, they're going to tell little Johnny, "Oh, you're great," and really, they know in the back of their head, little Johnny's not that great. We just want his money. Again, I don't want to step on anybody's toes. I'm not going there. I'm going to the whole concept of the kids themselves, the parents themselves. That's even probably worse at times. Coaches, yes, they're guilty as well. Friends of the kids, peers, like I mentioned, teammates, people will be told that they're really good. And I'm gonna share a story at the end of this. I hope I remember to share it. I won't be too upset if I don't share it, because it is a little. I don't want to again step on anybody's toes. But if anybody's these two people, the father and the son, if they're watching this, they're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. But I'll share the story as an example, okay? But later on, of course. But with regards to these kids and their attitudes, they've forgotten the levels of progression. Okay, they totally wiped those out. They want to go from and another thing that we always do with our kicking and the coaching mechanics and really kind of the mindset of learning the mechanics has to do with like school. Like when you enter school, you pre-K, you're a little kid, right? Then you go to kindergarten, then you go to first grade, second grade. It's a progress. There, nobody skips grades as far as I know. I mean, maybe some wizard kids out there might go from, sixth grade to seventh grade, or I'm sorry, eighth grade, or maybe even ninth, I don't know, sixth grade to eighth grade. We'll skip a grade. I don't think that happens, to be honest with you, but I could be wrong. I don't know. Who knows these days? Who knows? These guys are very, very, these kids are really smart. But my point is that there's a progression, a natural progression of learning. Okay. So you cannot typically, if I'm right, if I don't think there's ever, kids cannot skip levels of school. You have to go to the level that you pass second grade, you have to go to third. Then you pass third, you have to go to fourth. Well, there's the opposite. If you don't pass third, you have to stay at third. There's that too. So again, going back to the ladders, you see where I'm going with that? It's the same concept. Or maybe not the same with the stubbornness of a kid trying to go, I want to go to fifth grade. I don't need to go to fourth grade. I want to skip this, or whatever. But my point is really that level of progression. We tell these kids, listen, if you're kicking, if you want to be in, it's like you're kicking it at full speed right now, real aggressive, and it's not working out for you. It's like you going from sixth grade to 12th grade. You go to 12th grade, you're going to be so overwhelmed as a sixth grader. I know I'm being exaggerating here, but you understand the concept. A sixth grader cannot go jump from sixth to 12th grade. There's a lot of stuff in between that he's going to miss out on. She's going to miss out on. Okay. Same exact concept with any natural ability, any ability that you're looking to do as far as an athlete, right? Any sort of skill. There's a progression of levels of progression, I should say. So you have to understand that. And we tell these kids, listen, little Johnny, if you're trying to kick at 12th grade, well, let me backtrack. Little Johnny, we want you to be progressive in your skills, just like you were if you were in school. You progress from grade to grade to grade. Well, little Johnny decides one day that he wants to go from 6th to 9th grade, and he wants to kick it even harder, and he thinks he's got it down, but he's going to experiment by adding more power, and then he swings more lateral and does a bunch of other stuff, breaks down, huge backswing, whatever the case may be. We say, okay, little Johnny, you're trying to go to 9th grade here, but you're not ready. You can't kick it so hard. You can't, yeah, it was a nice experiment. You tried 9th grade, but it didn't work. So guess where you have to go? Back to 6th grade. You have to finish 6th grade. Then guess what? I'd really like you to go from 6th to 7th. Don't go from 6th to 9th again after you've officially passed 6th grade. We can't do that. We have to stay within our boundaries with regards to this level of progression. And so when you think of that with the athletes we're working with, it's the same concept in general life, is that you can't look too far ahead. And going back to my point about the parents, these kids are they're getting brainwashed into thinking, and maybe it's themselves too. Maybe they just think they're just really good, and maybe they have the ability to kick a ball pretty good. 1 out of maybe 2 or 1 out of 10 times, or 5 out of 10 times, they're 50%, pretty good, and the other 50% they're not. Well, they're not good enough still, even though they can kick a decent ball. In their mind, they want to keep repeating that decent ball every time. Well, they keep trying stuff and doing things. They're trying to progress when they're not really ready, and it makes them fail. And so again, if you're skipping the levels of progression, the natural levels of progression, I talk about kicking speed, kickoff speed, the approach speed. I talk about a bowling ball. If you had a hill like this and you had a bowling ball up there and you just lifted up your hand off the bowling ball and just let gravity take over on a hill that's really consistent like this, every rotation of that ball that goes down the hill, it's going to go progressively faster than the rotation before that rotation. You see what I'm saying? So there's a natural, gravity's real consistent. The hill is real consistent. Well, that's what I'm referring to with like kickoff speed, and even field goal speed even too, even punting speed. There's a lot of things that have a lot to do with this natural increase of speed. But when you try too hard, that's not, it's like the bowling ball falling off the cliff and just going 100 miles an hour down the cliff. And these guys run real fast and then they can't control. It becomes more difficult to control things. So much like that, the attitude is the same. Attitude is the same for these kids and people who look too far ahead, especially if they're really confident and stubborn. If they look too far ahead as a confident and stubborn kid or athlete or even adult, they're going to get themselves caught up into negative things, discouragement. They're going to fail more times. And again, it may end up actually quitting. And that's kind of the moral of the story is you get too many failures when you're trying to progress without a natural progression of levels. You might just decide that this isn't for you. Like, man, I thought I could get it. Now I can't. I'm so frustrated. I'm done. And they'll quit. But if you just went back in time and just did the right ladder that we told you to take, you would have not had to worry about those 3 other ladders that you wasted your time and energy on, only to realize that you failed. You couldn't get to the highest level because that ladder didn't take you there. Well, I'm telling you, the ladder is going to take you there, but little Johnny doesn't want to listen to me. He's listened to his friends. He listens to coaches and parents and, oh, my son, he's going to do this. Okay, so I'm going to, I know I'm getting real passionate about this, can you tell? But now I'm going to kind of transition into the story that I wanted to mention too. So the story goes, okay, now this is I'm going to draw it out a little bit. Of course, I don't want to spend too much time talking about it, but I was at a high school football game, maybe 10 years ago here at local school. It was in the playoffs, right? And I was watching the kicker I was working with on the local team, and we had a team from out of town that was visiting, obviously, and playing against us. The one team we were, the team I was watching my kicker at. Well, fast forward after the game, right? I saw the kickers and the punters on both sides, right? On my kicker, and then the punter, whoever he was, and then on the other team, I didn't know who the kicker or the punter was. I think there were 2 different guys, but okay, nobody stood out real, for me. I mean, my kicker probably did pretty good, whatever. I don't even know. I honestly can't remember. But my point is that the kicker and the punter on the other team didn't like. I wasn't like, whoa, who's this guy? I want to know. I'm looking at the roster, like, who is this guy? I want to see who he is. Like, what? Wow, he's form wise didn't really stand out. Result wise, as far as the punter, which I'm referring to a punter. Fast forward a couple months, maybe 2, 3, 4 months. I get a phone call from a father. Okay, this father says, he had kind of a southern accent, so I'm gonna do my best to repeat it. Hey, Mike, I got this. I got my son here, and we'll play for this team. And matter of fact, we were just in Jacksonville playing your team over there. And I tell you, my guy, Big Johnny, and he's a punter now, and he's a senior. And man, we just think he's all American. He's all good. And man, I can't. I got to tell you. And in the back of my mind, I'm listening to what he's saying, but I'm thinking to myself, I remember that game, and I know exactly what team he's talking about. Nobody stood out as far as kickers or punters on the other team. So I'm like, okay, well, I don't know what he's. And again, so Mike, I'm not really interested in getting any lessons because Big Johnny here, he's had lessons all over the nation, and man, all these guys are looking at him. We've been told by all kinds of coaches out there and all kinds of parents and all our peers and the coaches on our team, man. Big Johnny, man, here's the catch. They've been telling Big Johnny, man, you know what you should do? Big Johnny, you're so good at kicking and punting. I think you can be a professional punter. And I'm not talking about in 4 years. I'm not talking about after college. I'm talking about right now. Big Johnny, you should bypass the college and go straight into the NFL draft. This is what this parent is telling me. I'm like, whoa, I have never heard that before. Is a father of a kid who's asking my advice on how to get Big Johnny through, bypassing college, not even going to college and going straight into the NFL draft. And I had to stop him real quick. I said, sir, all due respect, there are rules with regards to the amount of years out of high school. You've got to be at least 3 years. Out of college, my bad. Out of high school, yes. You have to be 3 years out of high school. I'm sorry. I messed that one up. You have to be 3 years out of high school in order for you to be eligible for the NFL draft. You can't go into the NFL draft until you've had at least 3 years removed from high school. So right now you can't, Big Johnny can't play. He's got to wait at least 3 years. I would say go to college for those at least 3 years and get more experience, get even better than what you think Big Johnny is right now. And of course, in the back of my mind, I'm like, he didn't really stand out. I don't remember him, so he must not have been that great. I mean, if he was an NFL caliber punter in high school, you think I would remember him, right? So my point is, the father was so adamant about skipping college. Big Johnny, he's going to skip college. He's going to go straight to the NFL. And I hung up that phone and I was just mind blown. Like, wow, how in the world did this person, this father of this kid, and maybe even the kid himself, how did they both think, or even the people that told him that, how did they even come to that conclusion where the kid was good enough to play in college? I just referred to, if you're looking too far ahead, you're probably not ready, right? If that was clearly looking way too far ahead, right? Yeah, I understand kicking, punting is a little different. You're not bashing heads with guys that are big, fast, and strong and all that. But I can tell you, the kid wasn't ready. And I honestly, I don't know what, I never heard from the guy again. I of course, I didn't tell him, oh, he's not ready. I was politically correct. And I gave him the answer about the 3 years removed from high school. I said, he can't do it because of the rule. But even if he could, it'd be kind of a stretch. That was a nice way of saying probably not. But again, it's the mindset of the people like that have this brainwashed sort of mentality where they kind of are looking way too far in the future. The reality is not really there. Again, you've got to have the levels of progression to see where you can get. Now, if you think about the levels of the NFL, it is the highest level of football in the world. And going to my story, you got a high school kid, a senior in high school, that thinks that next year out of high school he could play at the highest level of football in the world. Wow, that's a great goal, but not that quick. You can have a goal playing in the NFL. I mean, a lot of kids do. How many of those actually reach it? Very, very minimal, because you guys know the stats. It's like less than 0.1% or something of all football players in the world. Maybe I don't remember the exact stats, but then you had kickers in there because there's only one kicker on the NFL team, so it goes even lower ratio than that. The percentage of making it as a kicker is really, really low. So with regards to, all football players in general. So my point is that, with regards, obviously, the progression, levels of progression, you've got to make sure that you're humble, that you live in reality. I say that jokingly, but I'm dead serious. There's a lot of kids out there and people in general that just don't live in reality. They've got this weird sense of reality, what they think their reality is. I'm not going to get political, but you kind of maybe know if you've seen things happening in the world around, the Tesla, like why are all these people like beating up all these Tesla cars and trucks and stuff when those same people applauded, Elon Musk for making the first electric car? Like, wait, you want to save the earth and all this, but you're mad at Elon because he's trying to save us tax dollars. I don't get it. The hypocrisy is just unbelievable there. So anyway, sorry, don't want to get political, but you understand what I'm talking about, okay? So understand that if you want to do things right, that's really kind of the moral of this whole story, this whole concept, and the subject of today's podcast, this episode, is if you want to do things to the best of your ability, a couple things: you got to be patient, and you got to have the ability to be able to progress. Those levels of progression have got to be progressive, natural. Let things happen as they will. Do not try to jump steps, and we get in trouble. When I'm going back to my point about the IKEA, when I order a bookshelf or a table or a desk or something, and I miss a step, I've done it before. Again, I learned from my mistakes. I've put all the things together. I'm thinking, and I look at down there, and there's a bunch of screws, and there's a couple pieces that look kind of important. I'm like, crap, and guess what? They weren't just like little, they're important pieces, but they weren't just like easy to, oh yeah, I just take this part off and put this in, and I'm good. No. I had to take the whole thing down. That's my boys. Like, man, again, the ladder and the buildings, you have to come all the way down from the top of whatever ladder you chose. Well, I chose to be stubborn and try to put the desk together myself, and man, was I wrong. So how much time did it take? I was trying to save time. That's the other thing too, is you're trying to save time doing these things on your own and just cutting corners left and right. You end up getting caught. You're like, oh man, that made it worse. So how much time it takes the guy to come down off the ladder? Well, you could have had that time of you going up the right ladder, because we would have told you which ladder it was. If you just followed the directions. Again, I'm guilty of it too. Okay, we all are, I think. So be patient. Understand that there's a certain progression when it comes to perfection, or close to as possible as you can. Mastering a certain skill. There should be a level of progression that is natural, that is not impatient, that you can learn from, and just take it slow and be patient, and don't expect, and you got to humble yourself. You can't. I know a lot of guys out there that are really athletic and get away with a lot of really athletic motions and movements, but in the long run, it doesn't work out sometimes. Okay, so that's that. And I've seen even NFL kickers who've just incredible athletes that are very good at kicking, but because athletically they're just really good at steering. But then they get to they reach a point of physical maturity where they can't get any stronger and all that, and they actually it starts to go backwards when they reach their early 30s. These kickers in the NFL that relied on their athletic ability this whole time to make the NFL and to play in the NFL. Well, guess what? Now what do they do? Like, wow, I don't know what to do now, because they don't have mechanics. They never thought about mechanics because they were athletic. They just got away with kicking the ball straight every time because they were good at it, right? So understand the progressions, the levels of progressions, and be okay. You have to be okay with them, because in the long run, you'll get as close as you possibly can at mastering whatever that skill is that you're trying to learn. So with that said, I hope you guys learned a lot on this one, as far as just, from my personal experience. Again, I'm not a professional at all this stuff. I was a professional kicker, yes, but I, got there certain ways, and I was patient with my stuff, and I'm glad I was. Okay, so I look back, and of course, in some of these previous episodes, I talked about how frustrated I was when I didn't get drafted into the World League. When my agent told me, and the general manager of the San Diego Chargers, Bobby Bether, yeah, we're going to put you in the World League draft. And my agent at the time, yeah, you're definitely going to get drafted. Don't take any classes in University of Idaho after this is after I got cut from the Chargers. And they said, don't go into classes and don't do this. Well, I never got drafted, so I was upset. But when I look back at it, hindsight is 20/20. Clearly, you understand that. That's what I'm saying. It was a good thing. I had workouts. I had the Giants came in and worked me out. The Falcons came in and worked me out. I had a couple workouts. The Jaguars came into town to work me out. I'd been playing in the NFL Europe at the time, or what World League, whatever it was at the time. I don't know what I've done good. I don't really know, but I know the path that I was actually given and what happened. I made it in the NFL, and I think part of that was that progression, levels of progression. Okay, so keep all that stuff in mind, and I hope you can use this mentality and then things that you're doing in your everyday life, and even teaching your children. When the time comes, if the time is now, or if it's later on in life, think about that. Think about teaching your kids a nice, easy sort of patient levels of progression, and you will see a lot better results in the long run. Might take a little longer, but you'll be a lot more happy in the long run, based on what my experience has been. Okay. So with that said, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your evening, and we'll definitely see you back here next Monday night at 5:30. Take care.
Thank you for watching Zealous Wellness with Mike Hollis. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. See you next time.